All right, guys, we're back here at the table saw, and I want to show you the setup procedures for this machine. The steps you're going to go through every time you walk up here before you make your cut. So we'll take a look at those, and then we're also going to take a look at how to make a blade change and how to change from the riving knife to the splitter and guard. I'll show you how to make that change back and forth here at the primary table saw. We will also look at how to make a change to the dado blade on our secondary table saw. So those are the things we're going to look at here. As is the case with all machines in our shop, the first thing that we're going to do when we approach this machine is we are going to make sure that it is clean. We've got an air hose that lives right here on the large dust collection down tube. And so I can grab this and blow the machine off and make sure it's clean and ready to go. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to return this hose to its home on the dust collection tube. For the table saw on the other side, the hose mounted on the door on the wall back by the door over there is likely going to be the most convenient for you. Once the machine is clean, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my rip fence. When the fence is on the right-hand side of the blade, we're going to read the tape on the right-hand side of the fence. Now this fence can easily be moved to the left side of the blade. And so if I put the fence on this side, the fence is on the left side of the blade. I'm reading on the left side of the fence. So it is important that you know which side of the fence you're reading to make sure you get an accurate cut. So if I want to rip my board down to a width of 3 inches, I'm just going to align the red line on the plastic with the 3-inch mark on the ruler, and that's going to give me the correct size. The next thing I need to do is I need to make sure that my blade is high enough to cut through the material that I'm using. So the easiest way to do this is to set your workpiece alongside the blade, and we can see here that the blade is not going to cut all the way through this material. It needs to be raised up. So as I raise the blade up, right there, it's high enough that it's going to cut through my material, but it's not set properly. In order to set the blade height properly, what we actually need to do is we need to raise the blade high enough that the gullets, and the gullets are the spaces in between the teeth, we need to raise the blade up high enough that the gullets are going to come just above the surface of our workpiece. That ensures that as we run our material through, the sawdust and the chips created by the saw blade are going to be ejected correctly and they won't get jammed up inside those spaces, inside those gullets. Okay? So again, we're setting the saw blade so that the gullets are level or slightly above the top edge of our board. That's how we're going to set the blade height. We're also going to check the gauge on the front of the machine to make sure that the bevel is correct. Again, most of our work here at the table saw happens at 90 degrees. And so it's uncommon that you will need to make an adjustment, but it's very common that you want to come to this machine and check and make sure that that bevel is set correctly. And again, that bevel handle adjustment is around the left side of the table saw cabinet on this machine. The last thing I need to do on this table saw is confirm that the safety system is turned on correctly. So with the dust collector running, I can flip on the primary power switch, and you can see these lights are blinking here as it's running through its self-check. A steady green light with a blinking red light tells us that it's initiating the startup process. Now I have a solid green light and the red light has turned off. That tells me that the machine is on and ready, and I can now go ahead and use it safely. I want to show you guys how to change the blade on this machine, as well as how to change from the riving knife to the splitter and guard combination back and forth. Before we make any of those changes or adjustments, we want to make sure this machine is unplugged. And so right back here on the left-hand side is our plug, and I'm going to just unplug this. This plug has a twist lock on it, so you have to unlock it before it'll come apart. And then I'm going to just set these power cords right here so that it's really obvious that this machine is unplugged. So let's take a look at how to make a blade change and also how to change from the riving knife to the guard splitter on this machine. So first I've got to remove my table insert, and that can be done just by lifting up on this tab at the front and then lifting up and pulling forward. And I'm just being careful not to hit my tripod. Now I can set this off to the side. Next, as we look down inside the machine, right down here, you can see this gray handle. And that handle is the quick release that allows me to change out my riving knife. And so I've already opened this little magnetic door right here. It'll be closed when you open the machine up. So I'm going to push this open and out of the way. And now I can reach down and I can just raise this handle up. With the handle in the up position, I can easily remove the riving knife from the machine. And now I can either put the riving knife back by setting it down on the bracket and pushing it to the left, and then pushing the handle back down all the way to the down position, and that is reinstalled. Or I can switch to the guard splitter combination. With our saw opened up, we are going to look at making a blade change. And so on the right-hand side of the blade, we have this large nut that threads onto the arbor, or the spindle, that the table saw blade rotates on. On the other side, we have a large nut down here that has two flat sides on it. And we're going to use on this machine a combination of two wrenches to remove this blade. The wrenches to make the blade change live in this vertical panel on the cabinet underneath the extension table for the table saw. And they're just hanging right here. We do also have a couple of blades in here. I'm just going to remove and reinstall the blade that is currently on the machine. So our wrenches have a closed end and an open end. We're going to use one wrench with the open end on the left-hand side of the blade, and it is going to fit down over top of the flat faces of the nut on the left side. I'm going to take the other wrench, and on this side I'm going to use the closed end, and this is going to fit over top of the nut on the right-hand side of the blade. And then I'm going to pull the wrench on the right-hand side towards me, and it is snug, and it should be snug to get that to release. Once I get it released, I can reach down inside and just unthread this. And it's really important to make sure that we do not drop this nut down inside the machine. And so I like to put my finger on the end of the arbor spindle and then unthread it with my thumb. And that way when it releases, my pointer finger is holding it in place and it's less likely that I'm going to drop it. You can also see that it's a little bit of an awkward position here. So there is the nut that I've removed from the arbor. I'm going to set that right here. There's also a washer on this side of the blade that I need to make sure I do not drop down inside the machine. So there is the washer. It has a concave side and a convex side. When this is installed, the concave side of this washer goes against the blade. Now with the nut and the washer removed, I can grab onto the blade and I can slide it off the end of the arbor. To install the new blade that I want to use, in this case I'm just putting the same blade back on. I'm going to make sure that the teeth on top of the blade are pointed towards me as the operator. I do not want to install it with the teeth pointed away from me. Really important. So I'm going to slide this down in here, and I'm going to slide it over the arbor until it's tight with the washer on the left side. Next, I'm going to take the washer with the concave side, put that concave side towards the blade. I'm going to reach down in here and slide that onto the arbor. It's a snug fit, so you've got to get it just right. And then I'm going to take the nut and I'm going to reach down in here and start threading the nut back on. And once it's on, I can just spin it on there pretty quick. I'm going to get it finger tight. And then you'll notice I've left my one wrench here. I'm going to take my other wrench, and now I've got to push the wrench on the right-hand side away from me to tighten this down. And so I'm pulling towards with my left hand and pushing away with my right. And I'm snugging that down about as tight as I can get it. And now that blade has been changed. I'm going to put my wrenches back in the cabinet, and I can reinstall my table insert. Now, when I install my table insert, these screws at the back edge are actually going to lock into the screws that are mounted into the table. And so I have to set the end down here, lower the table insert down, and then slide it back and jiggle it a little bit so that it locks in on those screws on the back side. Then I can drop down the front and I can press the latch down in, and now my blade has been changed, and that is also how I can change my riving knife to the guard or vice versa. So those are our setup procedures that we're going to go through every time when we are going to use our table saw. I'm going to make a separate video that shows how to change the blades on our other table saw, and specifically how to make adjustments and changes to a dado setup.